I am 37 and my wife is also 37. We have 2 kids, both boys, ages 9 and 10, and we got married young at the age of 20. She is a stay-at-home mom, which I agreed to so she could raise the boys, and we do have a babysitter that comes over occasionally. I am a general manager for a large retail chain in the region. I have been at the same job for almost 19 years and I love it. It pays the bills and a whole lot more. But the drawback is some nights I don't get home until late, and my wife has expressed her displeasure about that. We've never had any issues with our relationship when I call or text. She usually responds. It's been the same way for the 17 years. We have been married, but lately I have noticed some inconsistencies with her behavior, like not calling or texting back at all. But I didn't think too much of it because I thought maybe she was working on some type of project or dealing with the kids. But then one night I came home and she and the kids were gone, and all of her stuff too. She had left me a note explaining that she had simply gotten tired of my long hours at work and needed some time to herself. I was devastated and I felt like I have failed as a husband, but mostly as a father. But I was still angry at why she left. I sincerely felt she was being selfish and I was simply trying to take care of my family. I have been trying to call or text, but she won't answer or return my calls. I was so confused and didn't know what to do right at that moment. Then one day on my way home from work, she calls me and wanted to talk. She brought up the long hours at work and how frustrated she was with me. I interrupted and said to her, "Why do you think I work like I do?" She said, "Because you want to provide for us." And I told her while that was true, it was not the only reason. I said I work hard so we can have a better life. I explained to her how important it was for me to be able to take care of our family and make sure that our kids would have the best life possible. She was quiet and it felt like she finally understood. We agreed to talk more and that I would make sure to carve out time for us, so we could work on our marriage. I am hoping that with time and effort we can make things right. Again. A few days later, my wife and the kids came back home, and when she did, I asked her, where did she stay? She said she stayed with her friend Bonnie and that she got to thinking about the conversations we had and realized how much I truly loved her and our family. So as life goes back to normal, my wife is back, the kids are back, and for the last 8 months or so, everything is going well. Our sex life is back. I made sure we had date nights, and I even had our babysitter come over from time to time so we could go out on the town and have fun. But as life would have it, things don't always stay rosy. I started to notice that she was slightly distant and our sex life started to diminish just a tad again. I made a mental note of it and I didn't press her. Maybe she was stressed from what I don't know. I understand that our kids can be a handful at times. One day when I got home from work, I walked into the kitchen and I saw the kids, but I didn't see their mother. I asked, "Where is Mom?" The boy said she was upstairs. So I put my bag down and proceeded to walk upstairs. But I heard her on the phone telling someone she couldn't wait to see them tomorrow. And she giggled. I froze and my heart started beating fast. But I took a deep breath and went back downstairs to the kitchen. A few minutes later, my wife came downstairs and she acted surprised, but I didn't go over and give her a kiss like I normally do. Instead, I just said hello and continued playing with the kids. That night, when I was laying next to her, I knew something was up, but I wasn't going to jump to conclusions. The next morning I sent her friend Bonnie a text and see if she had some time to chat. Bonnie replied and said, yes. So we talked for a couple of hours. Bonnie told me that my wife had been seeing someone else for the past few months and kept it from me. She also told me how sorry she was that she hadn't said anything before. Bonnie also told me that my wife was telling her everything about our sex life, and my wife wanted to open the marriage because she thought our sex life was stale, and even brought up the fact that I worked so much. Bonnie asked me not to say anything to her, and I promised I wouldn't. I just stayed silent and listened to what Bonnie had to say. I thanked her for being honest with me and hung up afterward. I sat in shock, wondering what I should do next. But then an idea came to mind. I had to call a lawyer and see what would happen in a divorce. We got married in Delaware, which I believe is a fault-based state for divorce. So I had to start gathering evidence and make sure to protect myself in court. I knew the process would be hard. But that's the path I had to take if I wanted a new life without my wife. So with the free consult from my lawyer, he advised that I needed to get some evidence of my wife's infidelity. And that's exactly what I did. I set up a camera in our bedroom and a few hidden areas where she wouldn't even think they would be. So life went on as usual. I didn't tell her that I knew she was cheating on me. Thanks to Bonnie, but the cameras only showed her on the phone. That's it. No man ever came into our home. After reviewing all of this footage for a few months, I decided to hire a private investigator. It wasn't cheap. He was charging $100 per hour. It didn't take long to find out what she was doing. When I left for work, she had the babysitter come over and watch the kids for most of the day. This was happening almost daily. The private investigator found out that my wife was meeting a man she met on a dating site. I had enough evidence to prove she cheated on me, which would go a long way and possibly get in custody of the kids. But one snag came up in Delaware. I had to be separated for 6 months before I could file for divorce. But in the back of my mind, that didn't matter as long as I had the evidence I needed. I was good. I also had my private investigator gather information on the guy she was cheating with. I needed to know who he was and possibly inform his wife if he did have a wife. After gathering all of this evidence, I instructed my attorney to file for a legal separation. Now, once that was in play, I started to move some of my money to different bank accounts little by little, so I wouldn't be left with anything. Then I contacted my uncle, who owned a bunch of homes. He's in his late 70s, still sharp as ever. He was a long-time real estate investor. I told him the whole story and he was shocked beyond belief. And then he asked me, what the hell was an open marriage? I told him it was an arrangement where either spouse can have a relationship outside of their marriage. He then says, why in the hell do people get married? Then if they're going to participate in that nonsense, he then tells me, get out of there. I have a few nice homes that are vacant, take your pick and stay there. As long as you need to get yourself back on your feet. After speaking to my uncle, I had to figure out how I was going to start moving things without my soon-to-be ex-wife and kids knowing I was leaving. I wasn't going to move any furniture. The house I picked that my uncle had was already furnished, but I just said, screw it. I am not going through all of that. I was just going to move out when it was feasible for me to do so. And I didn't care if she was present. So as the days went by, my wife never suspected a thing. Fast forward a few days, and my lawyer calls me and tells me that the legal separation has been filed. I had him email a PDF to me, and I also had my private investigator give me all the footage he had on my soon-to-be ex-wife. That day I made arrangements to get a U-Haul and then give my wife the separation agreement and the footage from the private investigator. When I was driving the U-Haul, my heart was pounding. I was nervous. I was scared, and I was also excited about this new journey. When I pulled into the driveway, my wife didn't notice I pulled up in a U-Haul because the kitchen window is right near the driveway. When I walked in the door, I didn't see her in the kitchen. So I went upstairs, and there she was in lingerie on the phone, she screamed, and when she did, I handed her the separation agreement and some photos of her with her AP and told her I was filing for divorce. Luckily, the kids were not around. I assumed they were with the babysitter. But my wife was in absolute shock. She didn't know what to say. I didn't care. At that point, I didn't say a word. I started packing my things and she just sat on the bed crying within an hour. I had all my belongings packed in the U-Haul and I drove away. That was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, but I needed to move on with my life. The other issue at hand was, where was she going to live? The lease would be up within the next month and I was not going to renew it, but my kids needed a place to live, but I had a month or so to figure all that out as the weeks go by. My wife is desperately trying to get in touch with me and it's not working at this point. I was so done with her in this situation that was unfolding. I had to concentrate on the children and that was my main focus. So I contacted her and told her that we needed to figure out living arrangements for the children before she can open her mouth. I told her, "There is no chance for us. Don't even ask. I want to discuss the children." Fast forward a few weeks and we worked our visitation on our own. She ended up moving out of the house. We were renting until the divorce. She didn't have a stable place of her own. So the kids ended up staying with me. But as the divorce hearing came up, we didn't talk much at all. She tried to get alimony but she didn't because Delaware is an at-fault state. And the judge kind of hammered her verbally. She told my ex-wife that was a horrible decision for her to decide to do what she did. Her lawyer tried to argue that she needed spousal support. But the judge said no because she was also using the money I gave her to fund her extramarital affair. The bank statements I show at the court after the divorce hearing, to my surprise, the ex-wife got her shit together, got her place, and we went back to court for child custody. I was awarded primary custody. She still has to pay a small amount of child support. Even though at the moment I make more, she pays less than $400 a month. I still love my ex-wife but not enough to be her husband after she cheated on me and continued, then told Bonnie she wanted an open marriage because our sex life was stale and her remedy was to sleep around. Nope, she can have that lifestyle. Thank you, Tony. I came across her channel a few weeks ago. I was afraid to send my story. But after listening to some of the crazy stories, I decided to send my own story, and I was lucky to have my uncle watch out for me. For those of you wondering, the private investigator cost me just over $4,000.